Arnold Allen is going to butcher and destroy Max Holloway. And then the bell is going to go off to signify the end of the first round. So what happens next? That's the question. That's why we're all here. What's going to happen, guys? We're 2 days out from this fight. Max Holloway coming off of the worst loss of his life, taking on the up-and-coming Arnold Allen on a massive win streak from the UK. All right, all these UK guys get a lot of intrigue. They get a lot of hype, and people start to believe in them. But can he get it done? What happens in the second, third, fourth, fifth against Max Holloway? Is Max Holloway getting better? No. I think the man has hit his peak. I think he's leveled off. Is he declining? I think we're about to find out. The thing is, guys, there is a way that you can take Max Holloway out. There's a way that you can beat him. Number one, you have to have the cardio. You have to have a crazy gas tank to be able to go 5 rounds. Number two, you have to be able to sustain your speed, your power to some degree throughout the majority of those 5 rounds. And you have to have high volume. So let's ask a couple of questions here. Does Arnold Allen have phenomenal cardio? No. The guy slows down in the second and third round of every single one of his fights. He fades in 3 rounders. Number two, can he sustain his power and his speed for 3 rounds? No, it starts to drop down. And the last question is, what's the guy's volume look like? He's a low output, lower volume counter striker for the most part. And when we look at guys like Merab Dvalishvili, before he ever fought in a 5-rounder against Petr Yan, we were all thinking to ourselves, this guy has such a crazy pace, phenomenal cardio, but he's probably going to have to tone it back a little bit in a 5-rounder. I mean, this guy can go a hard 3 rounds. But with Arnold Allen, we're asking ourselves, this guy's pace is not that great. He doesn't have a lot of output. Is he going to be able to increase it over 5 rounds? That just doesn't seem likely. How on earth is a guy with low output who doesn't have a good pace, how is that man, the guy that already gasses out in the 3rd round of every single one of his fights, how is he going to sustain it for 5 rounds and maybe even increase it? And that's the question. And that's why, guys, I'm going with Max Holloway, 49-46, 48-47 by decision. I do not see Arnold Allen beating him. I think he's going to win a round, 2 rounds most. And his power is pretty decent for the featherweight division, but he just happens to be going out there and taking on the guy with the best chin in UFC history. And we're going to have to bank on 2 things happening in order for Arnold Allen to win. Number one, we're going to have to say, can this guy break the unbreakable chin that is Max Holloway? I'm going to say I'm not going to bet on it. It's never happened. Max has never been dropped. He's absorbed the most significant strikes in UFC history. Not one time has he been dropped. He's also landed the most strikes in UFC history. Is Arnold Allen going to be able to have an output that will allow him to compete with that in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round? Well, if the man is slowing down in the 2nd round of his fights against guys like Nick Lentz, against guys like Sadiq Youssef, how in the fuck is he going to beat Max Holloway? I understand he's fast. He's a really slick striker. He's well-rounded. He's strong. He's in shape. But he just happens to have the same body type of all the guys Max Holloway has completely butchered and destroyed. He's 5'9", typical featherweight build. Max Holloway struggles against short kings like Volkanovski, like Frankie Edgar. Even his fight with Frankie Edgar, yeah, I know he won every round, but damn, dude, was not a fun fight to watch. Max Holloway does not struggle against people in the 5'9", 5'10 range, 5'8 range like Brian Ortega, like Calvin Kattar, and now Arnold Allen. And the difference between Arnold Allen and Calvin Kattar and Brian Ortega is those guys have good cardio. They can ramp up as the fights go on. They're absolute dogs. I'm not saying Arnold Allen ain't a dog. We haven't had to see it yet. But Brian Ortega, that guy's almost unfinishable as well. And if fights were 6, 7, 8 rounds, maybe Ortega could be a lot better. You know what I mean? The guy just seems to be unfinishable. And then you have a guy like Calvin Kattar, who is known to be a slow starter, who's known for building, and still was landing hard shots on Max Holloway in the 3rd, 4th round, which were the rounds in which Max Holloway set records for the most significant strikes ever. What was in common between that Calvin Kattar fight and the one that we're about to see this Saturday against Arnold Allen? He was bouncing off of a loss, and he had a significant chip on his shoulder. Back then, he thought that he had done enough to beat Volk, but he was 0-2 to the man, and he knew he was going to have to do some work. And he knew that people were saying, fuck, dude, Max Holloway's title dreams are over. He's 0-2 to Volk. He wanted to prove a point. Calvin Kattar was the new guy on the block. Everyone was talking about how great of a boxer he was. This guy could be the one to beat Max Holloway up for 5 rounds. The thing is, man, he came in with something to prove, and he put on one of the most brutal beatings we've ever seen. People are starting to count him out too. This time, people were saying he's over the hill. 0-3 to Volkanovski. Just got destroyed in his last fight. And Max Holloway lost to Alexander Volkanovski, who is the best fighter on planet Earth, in my opinion. One of the greatest fighters of all time, if you're just looking at his skill set, who has a furious pace. This is the guy that broke Islam Makhachev in the 5th round and looked like he was building, looked like he was picking up steam. This is the guy that landed the most strikes in his last fight with Max Holloway in the 5th round. That was the round in which he did the best, the 4th and 5th. And we're talking about a dude with low output in Arnold Allen, who fades in the 2nd and 3rd round in front of guys like Nick Lentz. And Max Holloway's also well-rounded. People don't give him enough credit for that. He's able to shoot takedowns, and I think that when he's standing in front of an Arnold Allen in the 1st round, he might just go out there, try to clinch him up, maybe try to take him down in the 1st just to slow the man down and make him work. Because I don't think Max is going to gas out. And we talk about Arnold being fast, but who is he looking fast against? Dan Hooker, a depleted Dan Hooker? Calvin Kattar? Calvin Kattar looks slow compared to Max Holloway. Max Holloway looks just as fast against the same kinds of opponents. And I'm not convinced that Arnold Allen is going to show Max Holloway a speed that he's never seen. And even if he does, it's going to be by a smidge, and it's only going to last for 1 fucking round. All right? I understand he's British and we hype him up to oblivion and all that, and he's on a really good win streak, but like, who has he beat? The last fight that he had was supposed to be a test, and no questions were answered. And he can only do that shit for 2 rounds max, bro. And he's basically a boxer. And he's going to get outboxed. And he's going to get outworked. And he's going to get outdone to the body. And he's going to get outdone to the legs. And he's going to take spinning back kicks. And Max Holloway's going to be in his face, shaking his head and widening his eyes, getting crazy on him, telling the commentators to count it up. Count it up! And another thing you have to look at is the fact that, yeah, Max struggled with Yair Rodriguez, because I rewatched that fight again. Amazing fight. But here's the thing. Yair Rodriguez is one of the freakiest strikers in UFC history. That guy probably has the best kicks in MMA right now. I mean, there was one sequence where Yair threw like 4 kicks in the span of 4 fucking seconds. 3 of them to the legs, 1 of them to the head, no telegraph whatsoever. That is a guy with extremely high output, high volume, very dangerous, a lot of power on those kicks, who can go hard for 5 rounds in the striking, and is one of the most creative, quick strikers in the UFC. I know Arnold Allen's fast, but let's be fucking honest. The guy is just really a boxer. People talk about the low kicks of Arnold Allen, all the furious low kicks. Volkanovski's a better kicker than him. Volkanovski throws 3 times the amount of kicks of Arnold Allen. Yair Rodriguez throws 5 times the amount of kicks of Arnold Allen. And Max Holloway struggled with that. Yes, he did. But Arnold Allen doesn't have that output. And Max was still able to go out there and beat Yair Rodriguez and utilize a well-rounded approach to take him down and to outbox him. And Yair, as I said, has a furious pace as well. Arnold Allen will gas himself out trying to fight that way. One of the reasons Arnold slows down in his fights is because although he doesn't have a high output, he doesn't throw a lot of strikes, he's constantly moving around the octagon. He has a lot of lateral movement. The way he can get his opponents off of him when they try to push him up against the fence is he puts his hand on his guard, he forces them off of him, puts out his arm, and he doesn't have that long of a reach. So he's really like touching his opponents and shoving them off of him, and that takes a lot of energy. And the guy's constantly doing this to get out of the way of shots, to get out of the way of being pressured. And the thing is, man, with Max Holloway, you either have to continue to do that, in which that's what you normally do, and you're going to slow down like you normally slow down, or you're going to have to stand in the pocket with Max Holloway and box with him. And although Arnold Allen is really skilled, he's fast, and he can gain some respect from Max Holloway early on just by, stinging Max and being able to land the harder shots. He's got a really good jab. He's got a good straight down the pipe. But not everything that this guy throws is like super technical. If you watch that fight with Dan Hooker back, the guy is swinging for the bleachers, like big wild hooks left and right, and he's getting by with his speed. And of course, He's landing a lot of those shots, so he's confident to stay in the pocket there, but he got dropped in that fight to one knee. And I'm just using that as an example to show that when his speed diminishes, that takes a lot of his ability to do well away. You know what I mean? Like, he's fast, he's got a speed advantage, but what happens after that first round? You're going to have to continue to box with Max. You're not a heavy leg kicker. You don't throw that many kicks to the body. You don't go to the body that often anyway. So we have a guy that is pretty much in there headhunting with Max Holloway. That's a recipe for disaster unless you are a guy that is as smart and as experienced as Alexander Volkanovski. And even when Volk wasn't that experienced against Max Holloway in their first fight, he was throwing a lot of leg kicks and he got a lot of success with that. But the thing is, man, I just don't see Arnold Allen being able to do that for 5 rounds. He cannot just basically throw the kitchen sink at Max Holloway. That's kind of what you have to do if you're not Volkanovski. And you have to be really versatile in the way that you're striking like a Yair. And so who is Arnold Allen beat that leads me to believe that he can go out there and beat Max Holloway in a 5-rounder? He's not going to finish him. I think that Max Holloway is going to get his ass kicked early. He's going to be getting countered with big shots. He's going to think twice about closing the distance too often in the first round. Arnold Allen is going to break his hand in the first or second round. And after that, he is going to start to feel the pace of Max Holloway. Max Holloway is going to start picking up. He's going to start landing some spinning back kicks to the body of Arnold Allen. He's going to start throwing combos to the body, going to the legs, oblique kicks. He's going to start going upstairs. And in the third round, we're going to see Arnold Allen looking tired, his body language starting to drop, his countenance, his facial expression starting to drop. And then we're going to see how he deals with Max Holloway in his face when he's fully warmed up. I think it's going to be a bit of a Calvin Kattar-esque performance later on. I think that Arnold Allen's speed is a lot better than Calvin Kattar. I think his striking is a lot better than Brian Ortega. But there are things that he lacks in comparison to those guys as well that Max Holloway beat up. You know, pick your poison. Do you want to have really quick hands, power, explosive ability in the early rounds, but gas out? Or do you want to be a little bit slower twitch like a Calvin Kattar and a Brian Ortega and just be really durable and then start to build up as the fight goes? It's all not going to work against Max. The only guys I think that beat Max Holloway are like Volkanovski or maybe Yair Rodriguez in the rematch, because Yair is one of the best strikers in the UFC. After rewatching that fight, I'm starting to get scared for Alexander Volkanovski, and I'm starting to consider maybe picking Yair Rodriguez. That's how scary of a striker he is now. I'm going to go with Volk there. That's another video. But I don't see Arnold Allen beating Max Holloway. I think Max Holloway is going to take it to him. Arnold Allen is going to be basically fighting against his will to give up in the 4th and 5th round. That's what I see. And I don't think Max is going to finish him. Max doesn't really have finishing power. And I think that because Arnold Allen is young, because he's a great athlete, he's a stud, I think he's going to be able to hang in there. And I think he's going to be able to just survive to the end. I don't see him wilting. I think he's just going to toughen it out, right? I think Max is going to get this one done, guys. I think we're going to see another case of Max Holloway humbling the up-and-comer. Not saying that because Arnold Allen needs to get humbled or anything like that. Like, the guy has a good head on his shoulders, but I just don't see him beating Max. And if he does, he's going to have to, again, increase his output. How the fuck is a guy that slows down with a slow pace increase his output in a 5-rounder and not fade? So I can't bank on that happening. And it just so happens that he's going up against an unfinishable zombie who is ridiculously good against guys that don't have some of the best gas tanks ever. And if Arnold Allen slows down his pace, he's just going to get picked apart. And he needs to make Max Holloway respect him. He needs to back Max Holloway off of him. And in order to do that, you're going to have to let your hands go, and you're going to have to do it often. He can't sustain it for 5 rounds. Max Holloway is going to get it done. Until next time.